Damn, y'all eating this new Alela up, huh? Get the fuck out of here. This is my turf. Alright, so if you don't know what Alela does, the OG Alela, that is, Artful Provocateur. She's 1 a white, a blue, and a black for a 2/3 flying, death touch, lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. Whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token. My version of this deck is an artifact token value deck, based around massive amounts of ramp with mana rocks and artifact mana reducers like Ethereum Sculptor to flood the board with massive threats like Nautiloid Ship, Graz, Phyrexian Triniform, whatever works best. With tons of protection, tons of creatures, and a few swords to throw on Alela, the line of victory is flexible. If that interests you, let's get into it.
And I based myself based on what I read on the comments. I felt worthless. I felt ugly. I felt gay. I felt that like that.
Let's talk about the deck's main need. We need to be playing artifacts and mana reducers. Cards like Ethereum Sculptor, for example, allow us to spam tons of artifacts on the table to trigger Alela's token creation. Foundry Inspector, Ethereum Sculptor, and Ugin the Ineffable are all flat artifact cost reducers, allowing us to spam artifacts onto the board. Sten and Cloud Key can pick any card type and fill the same role, while Karn adds us an amount of colorless mana equal to the amount of artifacts we control on our turn, which can really help reduce those cost and spam artifacts onto the board even more. Now with cost reduction out of the way, what type of artifacts will we be spamming onto the board? A quick section, mana rocks are going to be great in this deck because they are artifacts. You can spam them onto the board for free most of the time with the cost reducers, and they trigger Alela. It's super good. They give you more mana to spam more artifacts onto the board. I run 7 mana rocks instead of the normal 13, only because I run 6 mana reducers as well, so totaling 13 acceleration cards. These are just to taste. On the screen are the ones I use, but feel free to use whatever ones you want. Of course, we run the boots to protect Alela and important creatures, along with Skrelv supplying creature protection as well. Teferi's protection is just gravy to protect us as well as our board. It's just the best card ever. With all these mana rocks, utility, and cost reducers in play, we gotta be playing some big bad artifacts, baby. Graz Unstoppable Juggernaut is one of my favorites for 8 mana. Turning all of your creatures into 5/3 Juggernauts has won me the game multiple times. Phyrexian Triniform and its cousin, Triplicate Titan. They come out really cheap. They're threats on their own and they spit out threats. I love these things. Nautiloid Ship only costs 4, but the work it puts in is crazy. Being able to wipe a graveyard and rip something every turn, and with all these mana rocks and reducers, this thing comes out for 1 or 2 mana, and with our tokens in play, it's fairly easy to crew. Liberator Urza's Battlethopter provides us artifact flash on a 1/2 body with flying that scales into the late game. Not to be laughed at, this card's great. It's really small, but it really does become a threat fairly quickly. And finally, Unlicensed Hearse is in a similar boat. Early game utility that scales late game, comes out for free most games. Scary little car, man. So with all these artifacts being played, Alela will make us a ton of tokens. So leaning into that theme a little bit, we've got a small 6-card token package. Emria's Call is great because it just acts like a land that can also spit out 2 4/4 angels that will become 4/5 with Alela's +1/+0 to flyers. Feldar's Retreat provides us 2/2 cats for each land, or if we're in late game and have plenty of tokens already, we can put a 1/1 counter on our board and give it vigilance, which in this deck is amazing either way. Marnus Calgar is an absolute kill on sight card. So much, I don't know how often I've actually been able to use it, but for good reason. Being a decent 3/5 body with double strike that lets you draw cards every time a token's made and able to make 2/2 tokens on his own, this couldn't be any better in this deck. Speaking of couldn't be any better, Monastery Mentor is just a second Alela. Alela's little brother. She gives the tokens +1/+0, he gives the tokens prowess. It's like super embarrassing, Mentor. You're like clearly copying her like whole thing. Rabble Rousing is a house every time I play it, having Hideaway 5 and the ability to spit out a 1/1 civilian for each creature you have attacking whenever you attack. Then you get to play the Hideaway card for free if you have 10 or more creatures. You'll all of a sudden have 30 civilians on your side of the board, got you feeling like a king of a society, start panicking about resource management and shit like that. What if they start a coup, try to Julius Caesar you? Normal Alela stuff. Shorkai is just a big robot that makes pilots. Next. With all these tokens floating around, we need a few ways to pump board and take an alternative route to victory. The aforementioned Feldar's Retreat is great for giving 1/1 counters to the board, and Graz is also great, making your whole board into 5/3s. Akroma's Will is a real game winner and easily one of the best cards in the deck, and the card I've probably won with the most, being able to buff your board with all the good stats. Protects the board while also massively buffing it with all the important keywords. Love this card. Makindi Stampede, again, is just another board-wide +2/+2 that's on the back of a land. At that point, why not? I don't mean to pull a Zoro on you, But this 3-sword style has won me more games than I can count. Sword of Body of Mind and Sword of Vengeance provide Alela with buffs and stats, while Blackblade Reforged provides her with a massive power boost. These can sneak home games with commander damage all the time, along with gaining us tons of life with Alela's lifelink. Card draw in this deck honestly is disgusting. No one should have this many cards this efficiently. Benny Brax, Marnish Calgar, Skull Clamp, Ifara, God of the Polis, Distant Melody, and Tokashia's Welcome turn our token creation from Alela into card draw, with cards like Marnish giving us draw when tokens are made, while Distant Melody draws us a card for each creature of a specific type we control, which in tokens is amazing. Emery and Tameshi provide us with the card advantage in the form of returning artifacts from the grave, while Tameshi just straight up draws you a card for doing that as well. Along with Reality Chip allowing us to play off top, and the classic Skull Clamp turning our fairies into card draw, along with Painful Truths and Night's Whisper being some straight up decent card draw, our hand is set most of the game. Removal in this deck is multifaceted in that it's designed to handle anything on or off the board. An Offer You Can't Refuse, Counterspell, Sublime Epiphany, and Brine Shaman are all great ways to counter threats, while cards like O-Ring, Prison Realm, Vindicate, Imprisoned in the Moon, and Utter End handle permanence in play. Witness Protection and Cut Down are just some straight up budget removal that I like to run. Plus Witness Protection's an enchantment, which is good with Alela. This deck runs 3 tutors in the form of Diabolic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, and Selendi Visions, which doubles as a land, so why not? With all the different routes to victory and a toolbox of responses, tutors are always good to have in a deck like this. Board wipes seem counterintuitive in a token-heavy deck, but these just interact really great with the deck. Hour of Reckoning lets us keep tokens around, Cleansing Nova can hit artifacts and enchantments or whatever specifically we need off the board, while Invitation Only lets us name a number 1 through 13, and then everyone has to sack that many, which gets through Indestructible, and a lot of the time we have more than 13 creatures in play, so very good interactions with the deck. I have no clue where to put these cards on the video, so here they are. Butcher of Malakir turns every fairy that dies into an opponent's having to sack. There isn't any death triggers or sack outlets in this deck besides her. She's just too good to pass up on. I mean, Aethersworn Sphinx is just a huge Sphinx that has affinity for artifacts, so when it comes out hella cheap, it cascades for 9. I just really like this thing. It's not the greatest card. It doesn't fit cleanly in the video, so here it is. Mechanized Production can enchant an artifact, spit out a copy of it on your upkeep. If you have 8 or more artifacts with the same name, you win the game. Makes tokens, makes artifacts, another way to win. I just really like this thing. Again, not really a clean spot to put it. And I guess here's probably the best place to put this card as well. Sculpting Steel, which can just be any artifact in play, which is so versatile for obvious reasons and so hard to put in a specific category for obvious reasons. So there you go. This deck is 36% white, 28% blue, and 15% black, so leaning into a more white-blue mana base may be wise. On top of that, the mana curve on this deck is very low, opting to spam the board with smaller artifacts for tokens and bring home games with a few big threats. This may be an aspect of the deck I want to change, opting to run more large CMC artifacts to benefit from the reducers, but the build already runs great, so it's something I'm going to have to test. In terms of just utility and the most useful card in the deck, has to be Sculpting Steel. It's the swords, it's mana rocks, threats, reducers, utility, anything you need at the moment, plus being able to copy opponent stuff, and most games coming out for free. This card is actually insane in this build. When you're building your own Alela Artful Provocateur, a couple things to keep in mind. 1, she procs off artifacts and enchantments. She does not have to be a full artifact deck. That's just kind of the way I leaned. Make your removal, mana ramp, and card draw artifacts or enchantments instead of instants and sorceries. This triggers Alela more often and adds a ton of synergy to the deck and interactions to the deck. Cards like O-Ring and Rhystic Study are just really good. She is ridiculously flexible. I mean, she's the Provocateur for a reason, baby. You could lean full token, full enchantment, full Voltron, full Pillow Fort, full stacks. She's a very malleable commander. Make it into what you want her to be. Here are 3 random back-to-back hands from Moxfield if you want to get a gist of what kind of hands you're looking at in this. I hope you guys like the deck. It's very fun to play, and again, extremely flexible. A great build to dive into and make your own. Full deck list down in the description. Much love, and go play some Magic.